During my farewell party, my cousin stood up and announced he landed a lead role in a movie. Then they turned it into his celebration while I wiped soda off the floor. I didn't say a word, but the next morning, my mom found something near the coffee pot and just froze. "So I guess this is my moment too," my cousin Nate said, raising his glass with the kind of smirk you only wear when you know you've stolen the spotlight. "I just landed the lead role in a movie." And just like that, my farewell party became his victory parade. There was a stunned silence at first, like everyone was still trying to figure out if he was serious. Then my aunt clapped, and someone started cheering. My uncle stood up and wrapped him in a hug. My mom beamed, because of course she did. Nate was her sister's golden boy, and somehow, his success always outshone my efforts, no matter the occasion. I stood there holding a half-empty can of Sprite, watching as the room spun away from me. Balloons with "Good luck, Evan," written in glitter letters, still floated near the ceiling, forgotten. The cake, my cake, sat untouched on the table, the icing starting to crack. No one noticed when I disappeared into the kitchen, except maybe the dog, who padded behind me looking equally bored. Someone spilled soda in the living room. Of course, they asked me to clean it. Not Nate. Not his loud, champagne-drunk entourage. Me. And I did. Without a word. I wiped the sticky mess from the hardwood floor while they toasted his big break. My hand shook, not from anger exactly, but from something colder. Emptiness. Familiar. Heavy. The house was filled with laughter. Not for me. Not even about me. That night, I didn't say anything. I smiled politely when Nate winked at me and said, "You're next, man. Don't be mad I stole the show." I wasn't mad. I was done. But the next morning, something happened. My mom was the first one up. She wandered into the kitchen still in her robe, mumbling something about needing coffee. I was already packed. I had an early flight, and I didn't want another chance for anyone to forget I was leaving. And then she saw it. Right there next to the coffee pot, on the edge of the counter. Her hand froze mid-air, just above the cabinet. Her eyes locked on it like it wasn't real. She didn't touch it. Just stared. "Evan," she whispered, her voice brittle. "What is this?" I didn't answer. I just zipped my suitcase, stood up straight, and walked past her. She didn't follow. She just stood there staring at the thing I left behind. It wasn't always like this. There was a time, years ago, when I thought being the reliable one meant something. That if I just kept showing up, kept helping, kept doing what no one else wanted to do, eventually, they'd see me. Not as the backup plan. Not as the one they call when the other cousins are too busy. Just me. Evan. But I should have known better. I was 12 the first time my mother skipped my piano recital to drive Nate to a casting audition. He didn't even get the role. But I still remember waiting by the curtains, peeking through them, hoping she'd walk in. She never did. Nate got his first commercial gig at 16. A local burger chain. I remember my mom crying when she saw him on TV like he'd just won an Oscar. When I got into Columbia, she texted back, "That's nice. Let us know if you need help moving." I didn't. I moved myself. I always did. Over the years, I swallowed it. All of it. The quiet exclusions. The times they forgot to tell me about family gatherings. The birthday cards that arrived 2 weeks late, if they arrived at all. But I kept showing up. I thought being useful would earn me love. Spoiler, it didn't. When I landed a job offer in Berlin, my dream job, and announced I was leaving, it was supposed to be my moment. My parents insisted we host a small party at our place. To send you off right, my mom said. It felt weird. Too sudden. Too performative. But I agreed. I even helped set it up, cleaned the house, picked out the food, printed banners, bought the decorations myself. They all said, "You're being too extra." But no one else offered to help. No one cared what music I liked, or what cake I wanted. And then, Nate walked in, flashed his $1,000,000 smile, and hijacked the whole night. But that wasn't even the worst part. That came later, around midnight, after everyone had left. I overheard my mom in the kitchen, washing dishes and talking on the phone. "Honestly, it's probably for the best that he's leaving," she said. "Evan's just not the star of this family. Never was. Always so serious, you know? The Berlin job will keep him busy, maybe teach him to stop overcompensating." I didn't confront her. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I went to bed. And in the morning, I woke up early, packed quietly, took my last walk through the house. Then I opened the drawer where we kept old receipts and pulled out the envelope. I'd found it a week ago by accident. One of those moments where the universe gives you exactly what you need. It was a copy of my bank statement. Only, it wasn't mine anymore. Someone had been using my account to funnel money into Nate's acting career. Private coaching, headshots, even flights to LA. And the signature authorizing it? My mother's. There was also an email. Printed, folded, tucked in the back of the envelope. It was from her to Nate's agent, saying, "I'm wiring the funds from Evan's account. He won't notice. He never asks questions." So yeah, I left that envelope on the counter next to the coffee pot. No note, no threat, just the truth. I watched her face go pale as she read it. Watched her lips move as she whispered my name. Watched the horror dawn on her when she realized I knew, and that I'd known for days. I didn't say a word. I just opened the front door, dragging my suitcase behind me. But I'll never forget her voice trembling as I stepped outside. "Evan, wait." I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't playing the quiet one. I wasn't being useful. I was being done. When I landed in Berlin, it was still dark outside. Cold wind licked the windows of the cab, and the driver hummed along to a sad indie song I didn't recognize. I should have been excited, starting a new life in a city I loved, a job that made all the sleepless years worth it. But I couldn't stop thinking about her face when she saw the envelope. And the text that came 5 hours later. "Mom, we need to talk. This is not what you think." Then another. "Mom, please come home. Let's figure this out. We love you." Then Nate. "Nate, dude, what was that? You're really gonna throw a tantrum over a couple $1,000s? Grow up." A couple thousand. They'd stolen over $14,000 from me. Quietly. Over the course of 2 years. And they knew I'd never question it. Because that's who I was to them. Quiet, predictable, generous, Evan. The safety net. The invisible scaffold holding the family stage together so the stars, like Nate, could shine brighter. Not anymore. I ignored every message. I didn't answer their calls. I focused on my job, on building a new life. For the first time, I was in a place where no one knew me as the extra cousin. Here, I was just Evan. And I loved it. But the peace didn't last. 3 weeks later, I got a call at work from a blocked number. I don't know why I answered. Maybe I was just tired of running. "Evan." It was my dad. I hadn't heard his voice in months. He sounded tired, like he was reading off a script someone else had written. "We're flying out tomorrow," he said flatly. "Your mother and Nate need to talk to you. This has gone too far." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Gone too far? You mean me leaving after you stole from me? After Nate turned my farewell party into a press tour for himself? After you all stood around while I cleaned soda off the floor like a servant?" He sighed. "It was a misunderstanding." "No," I said sharply. "It was betrayal. Call it what it is." The next day, I got an email from my building's receptionist. "Hello, Evan. Your family arrived and left multiple messages for you. They asked to be let up, but we declined as per your standing request. They said they'll return tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you'd like us to intervene again, please advise." I didn't reply, but the next morning, I waited by the door. At exactly 10:07, there was a knock. I opened it. My mom, wearing a gray pea coat and that same practiced look of half concern, half control. My dad stood behind her, hands in his pockets. And Nate, sunglasses, scarf, smirk. He looked like a walking magazine cover. "Hi, honey," my mom said carefully. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. Not for them. For me. I wanted to hear it. I wanted to look them in the eye and see if they were capable of admitting the truth. They sat stiffly on the couch while I leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. No coffee. No fake small talk. Just war. Mom started. "Evan, we made a mistake. I made a mistake. I was under a lot of pressure. Nate's career was struggling, and you've always been so stable." Nate cut in. "You didn't even notice the money missing, man. Don't act like we robbed a bank." I stared at him. "You took from me. You just wore my last name while doing it." Dad finally spoke. "We're here to apologize." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yes," Mom said. "But we also need to move forward. We need this family whole again." There it was. Need. Not want. Not we're sorry. Not we were wrong. Just we need you back. Because they needed the guy who always paid for dinner. Who lent money without asking for receipts. Who never fought back. "I'm not coming back," I said simply. Silence. My mom's face twitched. "Evan, don't be dramatic." Dramatic? I laughed. "You forged my signature. You took money behind my back. You hijacked the most important night of my life. And when I didn't clap for Nate loud enough, you called me bitter." Nate rolled his eyes. "I didn't know about the money, all right? That was Mom. I just thought it was." "What?" I snapped. "Fair? Because I don't pose for selfies or cry on cue." You've always had a problem being supportive, Nate hissed. You act like a saint, but you've been jealous of me since we were kids. I stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Jealous? You mean when Mom framed your headshots and put them over my graduation diploma? Or when she gave you the master bedroom because your creativity needs space? You mean then? My mom stood. That's enough. No, I said. It's not. She froze. I'd never raised my voice to her. Not once. But this wasn't a son speaking to his mother. This was a man speaking to the people who built their comfort out of his silence. You want the truth? I said. Here it is. I sent money when Dad was laid off. I paid for your surgery co-pays when insurance wouldn't cover them. I bought your car, Nate. And never once, did anyone say thank you. But the moment I stopped being convenient, I was disposable. That's not true, Dad muttered. I turned to him. You knew. You looked the other way. Because it was easier to let Mom run the show, and easier to believe Nate would make it big someday, and save us all. I will make it, Nate snapped. I hope you do, I said. Because from now on, you're paying your own bills. Mom crossed her arms. We came here to make peace. No, I said. You came here to reset the cycle. So I'd forgive and forget, and go back to being your human wallet. Dad stood, his voice low. Evan, listen. I have been listening, I snapped. My whole life. And now it's your turn. I walked over to my desk and pulled out a file. Inside, a notarized statement revoking my parents' access to my shared accounts. A fraud report. A list of transactions I'd already submitted to the bank. I handed them the envelope. Nate stared at it like it was a live grenade. You wouldn't. I already did. You're blowing up the family over money? Mom asked, eyes wide. No. I said, calm now. I'm tearing down the illusion that I ever had a real family to begin with. The three of them just stood there, silent, stunned. I opened the door. I have a meeting, I said. Feel free to see yourselves out. My mom's voice cracked. If you walk away from this. I cut her off. I'm not walking away. I'm breaking free. And then I shut the door. They left without another word. No slamming doors, no dramatic exits. Just a quiet shuffle down the hallway. But that silence, it roared. It wrapped around the apartment like smoke from a fire I'd just set. A part of me thought I might feel relief. Closure. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I knew what came next. The performance. The rewritten story. The guilt trip. The manipulation. They wouldn't let me go quietly. Not when I'd finally become the villain in their version of events. It started that night. Mom, I can't believe you would do this to your own family. Dad, we flew across the world for you. Nate, you're overreacting. And then came the Facebook post. From my mother's page. We try to do everything for our children. Sometimes they forget who's been there the most. We raised a son, not a stranger. But God sees all. God sees all. Yeah, he does. And I bet he kept the receipts too. I didn't reply. I didn't post. I didn't defend myself. I just watched. Comments flooded in. Distant relatives, church friends, even my middle school music teacher chimed in with prayers and sympathy. He'll come around, they said. Kids get cold sometimes. So sorry you're going through this, Mary. Not one of them asked what happened. Not one of them thought maybe, just maybe, the quiet kid finally snapped because he was pushed too far. But that was fine. Because while they were busy crying over a carefully curated Facebook pity party, I was rebuilding. And I was starting with myself. The first night after they left, I didn't sleep. I stayed up watching the city lights outside my window. Berlin humming quietly in the background like a new chapter breathing just below the surface. My stomach twisted, but it wasn't regret. It was withdrawal from a lifetime of being the emotional mule for everyone else. The next day, I deleted the family group chat. Unfollowed Nate. Blocked my parents' numbers. I even pulled out the photo album my mom had made for me when I graduated college, and tossed it. Page after page of forced smiles at events they barely showed up to. I didn't need reminders of who I used to pretend to be. A week later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. Hello. There was a pause, then a sigh. Evan, it's Aunt Melissa. I blinked. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 5 years. She was the black sheep on my mom's side. The one who embarrassed the family by moving to Portugal and marrying a man they didn't approve of. I heard what happened, she said softly. I waited for the judgment. The lecture. The subtle shaming. But instead, she said, good for you. I froze. What? I saw the post. Your mom's always been good at playing saint. But you? You've always been the strongest one. You just didn't know it. I sank into my chair. I didn't think anyone saw it. We saw it, she said. Some of us always did. We were just too scared to say anything. That was the first time I cried. Not because I was sad. Because someone, somewhere, finally got it. The fallout grew louder before it got quieter. Nate posted a tell-all podcast episode about toxic siblings. He didn't name me, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew. Then a tabloid picked it up. Up-and-coming actor Nathaniel Green opens up about betrayal, family, and how Hollywood healed his pain. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Hollywood healed his pain? I paid for his first 3 acting coaches. I covered his rent in LA for a year while he found himself. But sure, he was the victim. I got messages from random strangers. Some defending him. Some calling him spoiled. One girl wrote, "Thank you. My brother's the Nate in our family." I thought I was the only one who saw it. That one? I screenshotted and saved. A month passed. Then 2. And something strange happened. Peace. No more surprise calls. No more backhanded guilt texts. No more being dragged into other people's messes. I'd wake up, make coffee, walk to work, go out for drinks with new friends, laugh, really laugh, without checking over my shoulder to see who needed saving. I started sleeping through the night. I signed up for German classes, joined a photography club, said yes to a date for the first time in 2 years. And every time I did something just for me, I remembered the way my mom's face crumbled when I said, "I'm not walking away. I'm breaking free." Because that was the truth. This wasn't about revenge or punishment. It wasn't about taking something from them. It was about giving something back to myself. Then came the final test. An email. From Nate. "Hey, just wanted to say. I get it now. Maybe not all of it. But enough. You were right. No excuses. No fake humility. Just that." He didn't ask for forgiveness. And I didn't offer it. But I replied, "Thanks for saying that. Hope you find your peace." That was it. The final page. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a background character in someone else's story. I felt like the author. Sometimes I catch myself reaching for my phone. Instinct, I guess. To send a photo. A message. A joke only my family would get. Then I remember, there's no we anymore. And for the first time in my life, that thought doesn't sting. It frees me. Because I finally realized something no one in my family ever wanted me to know. I'm not broken. I'm just untrained in betraying myself. They taught me to shrink, to nod, to carry burdens that weren't mine and call it loyalty, to bleed quietly in exchange for crumbs of validation. But those days are over. They don't get to narrate my story anymore. I do. I thought the hardest part would be cutting ties. But it wasn't. The hardest part was releasing the hope that someday they'd change. That someday I'd matter. I don't hope for that anymore. And strangely, that's where peace began. A few weeks ago, I stood at a train station in Berlin. A crisp spring morning, sun cutting through cold air. I was sipping coffee when a woman bumped into me and apologized in German. I replied fluently. She smiled. I smiled back. It hit me then. I belong here. Not just in this city. In this skin. This body. This voice that no longer shakes when I speak. Later that day, I got an email from my old landlord back home. A letter had arrived for me. From my mom. She'd written it by hand. I opened the scan. It was 3 pages of guilt, nostalgia, and just enough sugar to pass as love. The last paragraph said, "We only ever wanted what was best for you. I wish you could see that. You've changed." I read it twice. Then I deleted the file. No reply. No closure. No more performances. Because yes, I've changed. I no longer believe that being related to someone gives them the right to hollow you out. You know what's funny? They used to call me the quiet one. I wasn't quiet. I was watching, learning, surviving. And now? I'm louder than all of them. Not in noise, but in action. In the way I live. I'm building something here. Real friendships. A job I love. A home where I don't flinch when the phone rings. A version of myself that feels undeniably true. Last weekend, I hosted a dinner for new friends. We drank wine on the balcony, talked about music, books, stupid dating stories. Someone asked about my family. I smiled and said, "I had one once, but I upgraded." They laughed. I did too, because that's what healing sounds like. It doesn't always come with soft piano music and peaceful meditations. Sometimes it arrives as fire, closing chapters that were never safe to cross. This is my truth. I'm not selfish. I'm not dramatic. I'm not too sensitive. I'm not the villain in anyone's broken story. I'm the one who said no, and meant it. And if that makes me the black sheep, then I hope my will burns bright enough to light the way for the next quiet one. Moral of the story. You don't owe anyone your peace just because they share your blood. Being the strong one doesn't mean being the silent one. And sometimes, walking away isn't weakness. It's revolution.